one day somebody does something unspeakable to someone else, to someone you hardly knew, and you do something about it, because you can.
This story is brought to us from CNN, where a second former Memphis police officer facing federal civil rights charges in the violent arrest and beating death of Tyre Nichols changed his plea to guilty last Friday in federal court. Now, Emmett Martin III joined his former colleague Desmond Mills, remember he changed his plea, who also changed his plea to guilty last November as part of a settlement to both state and federal charges he faced for his role in Nichols' death. Now, the change comes after Martin had previously pleaded not guilty. Mills and Martin are among 5 former officers charged in the death of Tyre Nichols, the 29-year-old black man. Martin was facing federal charges of deprivation of rights, witness tampering, and obstruction of justice. This is a cop. 3 other former officers, Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, and Justin Smith, are still awaiting trial. Now, it's unclear if Martin intends to change his plea in the state case, where he's currently facing a second-degree murder charge. CNN reached out to Martin's attorney multiple times for comment. You're not going to give it up. The former officer pleaded guilty to deprivation of rights under color of law, excessive force, and failure to intervene, as well as conspiracy to witness tamper, according to a plea agreement filed in court last Friday. He admitted he willfully used unreasonable force against Tyre Nichols, aided and abetted other officers in assaulting Nichols, and failed to intervene in the other officers' use of force. He also admitted to conspiring with the other officers to cover up their use of unreasonable force on Nichols, according to the plea agreement. We're going to get back to that in a second. The plea deal stipulates a recommended sentence of up to 40 years, according to a document filed in court last Friday. The maximum recommended sentence is significantly longer than the 15-year maximum recommended in Mills' case, though the decision in both cases will ultimately be up to the judge. It always is. He gets the last call. Quote, "Today was very emotional to hear another police officer plead guilty in my son's murder," says Rovon Wells, Nichols' mother. She said, "One of my kids is gone now because of the Memphis Police Department. Tyre was minding his own business, and he was just coming home," she said. She added that Martin's guilty plea was going in the right direction. She said, "I'm hoping that after today, the other 3 officers will see and look at themselves and say that they're guilty, because they know that they are." She goes on, "I'm grateful that he did plead guilty, but it doesn't help my pain. No, I will never have my son back. I will never hear his voice again." Now, Benjamin Crump, one of the attorneys representing Nichols' family in their $550 million lawsuit in federal court against the city of Memphis, its police department, and what the suit said were unqualified, untrained, and unsupervised officers, also said he hoped the other officers involved plead guilty. He said the dominoes are falling, and the dominoes won't stop with just these officers. He said the blood is not only on the hands of these officers, the blood is on the hands of the Memphis Police Department, which is true. Rodney Wells, Nichols' father, called for Martin to receive the maximum recommended sentence of 40 years. He said, "If we get 40 years, we'll be happy." And he said that comparing the sentence to former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin's 21-year sentence in the death of George Floyd. He said, quote, "This is not something we ever take for granted, that police officers will be held accountable and sentenced to real prison time for killing black people in America." And that's kind of true. Like, we don't expect officers to ever get, charged. Crump added, "Normally we see a slap on the wrist. When you look at how they beat him to death, the sentences should be significant too," says Crump. He also called attention to the Scorpion Unit, a controversial specialized unit launched in 2021 to take on violent crime in Memphis. said all 5 officers charged in Nichols' death belonged to that unit. Police said the unit was permanently deactivated shortly after Nichols' death. He said these scorpion officers were prowling the streets looking to make unconstitutional stops. That's what they do. In a Friday statement, the Shelby County District Attorney's Office described the guilty plea as another important step toward closure for the family of Tyre Nichols. He goes on, while today's development is significant, there is still more work to be done. The public deserves confidence that those responsible for enforcing the law will be held accountable for excessive force. The District Attorney's Office added it expects Martin will enter a similar plea in state court. Now, just a little refresher, if you don't remember, Nichols died in January of 2023, 3 days after the 5 police officers repeatedly kicked and punched him following a brief traffic stop and a brief foot chase. The officers then left him slumped against a car for critical minutes, according to a video. Autopsy results revealed he died from blunt force trauma to the head, and his death was ruled a homicide. And his beating and his death led to protests and vigils in Memphis and other major U.S. cities, reigniting the contentious debate over policing and the ways that law enforcement treat black people. And I said I was going to get back to something. I'm going to get back to it now and then finish. But he was saying how they conspired to cover it up. And so I used the Tyre Nichols as an example. I used this incident as an example of always record the police if you have time. You see, if you have opportunity and time and you see police interacting with somebody, stop, go over there and record it. You're going to have people that are going to ridicule you. You're going to have people that are going to mock you. You're going to have people that are going to insult you in your comment section of your video. They're going to laugh at you. They're going to say, you're a busybody. You don't know what's going on. Well, I'm sure that a lot of people didn't know what was going on with Tyre Nichols until the video came out. So that's what I want to get to. To close here. So they tried to cover it up in their police reports. Well, he was fighting us, and he was, coming at us, and he was aggressive. And then there was a street pole camera that showed what was going on in the street, where Nichols went like this, and they ran up and just started beating him like a bunch of thugs from Compton, from South Central Los Angeles. They just come up and pow, pow, pow. And he died. And then they tried to say, well, he was fighting us, and fighting like this? What was he going? I'm going to hit you with my fingers. That's what some cops do. Had that street pole camera not been there, had that camera, that public camera, not captured that street right there, they might have gotten away with this. But now you got at least 2 cops that pled guilty. The other 3 are probably like, oh my God, man, what are they doing? They're throwing us under the bus. As they should. It's time for some of these cops to start seeing justice, real justice, like Derek Chauvin.